The most dangerous person in your life isn't a narcissist. It's not a psychopath either. It's someone who understands exactly how you feel and uses that understanding to destroy you. Psychologists call them dark empaths, and they're everywhere. Your workplace, your friend group, maybe even in your bed. Here's what makes them terrifying. They have all the emotional intelligence of a therapist, combined with the moral compass of a predator. They don't just hurt you. They make you thank them for it. And you won't see it coming. In 2020, researchers made a disturbing discovery. They were studying the dark triad: narcissism, Machiavellianism, psychopathy, the classic predator types. But something didn't fit. They kept finding people who scored high on these dark traits and high on empathy. That shouldn't be possible. Empathy is supposed to be the opposite of manipulation. It's the thing that makes us good, right, wrong. The study, published in Personality and Individual Differences, identified a new category: Dark Empaths. People who can read your emotions perfectly, feel what you're feeling, and then weaponize that knowledge against you. They're not emotionless like psychopaths. They're hyper-emotional. They just don't let emotions stop them from getting what they want. Think about that. Someone who knows you're scared, knows you're insecure, knows exactly what words will break you, and says them anyway. Not because they don't understand the impact, because they do. That's the weapon. And here's the worst part. The research suggests dark empaths might be more common than pure psychopaths, because they blend in perfectly. They look like the good guy. They sound like your best friend, until they're not. Here's how you spot them. Dark empaths are too good at matching your energy. You're excited. They're excited. You're sad. They're sad. You're angry. They mirror it perfectly. But here's the tell. It's performative. A normal empath feels your emotion and responds authentically. A dark empath calculates the response that gets them what they want. Let me give you an example. You tell a regular friend you got dumped. They say, "I'm so sorry. That sucks. Want to talk about it?" Genuine. Simple. Present. A dark empath hears the same news. They say, "Oh my God, I knew something was wrong. I could feel it. I've been worried about you for weeks. You deserve so much better. Actually, I went through something similar last year, and it destroyed me. But I learned so much. Let me help you through this." See what happened? They made your pain about their insight. They positioned themselves as the expert on your emotions. And they created dependency. Let me help you sounds caring. But it's actually, let me become necessary. The research shows dark empaths use cognitive empathy, understanding emotions, without effective empathy feeling them. They know the script. They just don't mean it. And that gap, that's where the danger lives. This one's subtle. Dark empaths share secrets. They open up, they cry, they show you their wounds, but it's calculated. They're not being vulnerable. They're testing you. Here's how it works. They tell you something deeply personal, something that makes you trust them completely. Maybe they share a trauma, a fear, a shame, and you think, wow, they really trust me. Wrong. They're doing two things. First, they're creating reciprocity. You feel obligated to share something equally personal. Now they have ammunition. Second, they're measuring your empathy. How you respond to their vulnerability shows them your weak points. Do you immediately try to fix it? You're a rescuer. Do you minimize it? You avoid discomfort. Do you relate it to your own experience? You need validation. They're cataloging your patterns. A study from the University of Cambridge found that dark empaths are exceptional at effective forecasting. They can predict how you'll emotionally react to future situations, better than you can. So, when they share that vulnerability, they already know how you'll respond. And they're planning their next move based on that response. Your compassion becomes the trap. Here's where it gets dark. Dark empaths don't show empathy consistently. They show it strategically. Watch who they're kind to and who they're cruel to. You'll notice a pattern. They're incredibly empathetic to people who can help them. Their boss, total understanding, someone they're attracted to, emotional genius, someone they see as competition, ice cold, someone who's no longer useful, discarded. And here's the manipulation. When you call them out on it, they flip the script. I'm just setting boundaries. I can't pour from an empty cup. I have to protect my energy. They use therapy language to justify cruelty. And it works, because those phrases sound healthy, but context matters. Setting a boundary is, I can't talk right now, let's connect tomorrow. Weaponized boundary setting is, you're too negative for me. I'm choosing to remove toxic people from my life. One is self-care, the other is punishment. Dark empaths know the difference, and they know you'll blame yourself for being too much. Research shows they're particularly skilled at empathic concern manipulation. They show just enough care to keep you engaged, but withdraw it strategically to keep you off balance. You're always chasing the version of them that was kind. That's not an accident. That's the design. This is their masterpiece. Dark empaths don't just gaslight you about facts. They gaslight you about your feelings. Here's how it sounds. You say, I'm hurt by what you said. They respond, no, you're not hurt. You're just tired. You're projecting your insecurity onto me. I know you better than you know yourself right now. They're rewriting your internal reality. And because they do understand emotions well, you start to doubt yourself. Maybe they're right. Maybe I am just tired. But here's the tell. They only do this when your emotions are inconvenient for them. You say, I'm so happy we're together. They never respond. No, you're not. You're just lonely. They only correct your feelings when those feelings threaten their agenda. A 2021 study on emotional manipulation found that dark empaths use affective invalidation as a primary tool. They acknowledge your emotion, then reframe it as something else. You're not angry. You're just stressed. You're not in love with them. You're just idealizing them. You're not being abused. You're just sensitive. See the pattern. They don't deny your experience. They reinterpret it. And their interpretation always benefits them. This is psychological warfare disguised as emotional support. This one chills me. Dark empaths use emotional intelligence like a surveillance system. They're constantly scanning. How are you feeling today? What triggered that reaction? What made you laugh? What made you withdraw? They're building a profile. Not because they care. Because information is power. And they're collecting data for future use. Let me show you how this plays out. You mention, casually, that you're insecure about your career. A normal friend forgets. A good friend remembers and encourages you later. A dark empath files it away. Then, 6 months later, during an argument, you know what? You've always been insecure about your career. That's why you're projecting onto me. You can't handle my success because you feel like a failure. They weaponized a vulnerability you shared in confidence. They waited for the perfect moment, and they struck exactly where they knew it would hurt most. Researchers call this dark emotional intelligence, the ability to use emotional information for exploitation rather than connection. And dark empaths score off the charts. They remember everything, not because they're sentimental, because they're strategic. Your secrets become their arsenal. So, how do you protect yourself? Let me be clear about something first. You can't out-empathize a dark empath. You can't out-manipulate them. They're professionals. You're not. But you can use their own patterns against them. Here's your defense system. Test number 1, the consistency check. Dark empaths can't maintain the performance forever. Watch how they treat people over time. Do they love bomb then discard? Do they oscillate between intense empathy and cold detachment? Real empathy is stable. Weaponized empathy is cyclical. Test number 2, the reciprocity test. Share something vulnerable. See what they do with it. Do they hold it sacred, or does it come back during a conflict? You only need to test this once. If your vulnerability becomes their weapon, you have your answer. Test number 3, the boundary test. Set a small boundary, nothing major. I need some space this weekend. Watch their reaction. A healthy person says, okay, enjoy, talk Monday. A dark empath says, why? What did I do? Are you mad at me? I thought we were close. You're shutting me out. They make your boundary about their feelings. That's the toe. Test number 4, the outside perspective. This is crucial. Ask someone who's known you longer than this person has. Do you notice me acting differently around them? Dark empaths isolate you subtly. They change how you see yourself. Outside perspectives cut through the fog. Test number 5, the pattern recognition. Keep a journal. After every interaction, write, how did I feel before? How do I feel now? Did they validate or invalidate? Did they help or create dependency? Patterns emerge over weeks. One bad conversation is a bad day. 10 bad conversations is a bad person. Here's what most people miss about dark empaths. They're not born evil. They're usually trauma survivors who learned empathy as a survival skill. They had to read emotions to stay safe. Maybe a parent with unpredictable moods. Maybe a chaotic childhood where reading the room meant survival. They developed hypervigilance. Then they learned they could use that skill to control outcomes. And it worked. So they kept doing it. This isn't an excuse. Understanding the origin doesn't erase the harm, but it explains why they're so good at what they do. They've been training since childhood. Here's the philosophical question, though. Is empathy itself neutral? We treat it like an inherently good trait, but the research on dark empaths suggests otherwise. Empathy is a tool, like a knife. You can use it to heal, or you can use it to hurt. The difference isn't the tool, it's the intention behind it. And that's what we miss when we glorify empathy without examining motive. Someone can understand your pain deeply and still choose to increase it. That's not a lack of empathy. That's a choice. The dark empath research forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth. Emotional intelligence without ethics is just sophisticated manipulation. And we've built an entire culture that worships emotional intelligence. Without asking, to what end? So here's my challenge to you. Don't just ask if someone is empathetic. Ask, what do they do with that empathy? Do they use it to heal? Or to control? Do they use it to connect? Or to collect information? Do they use it to support? or to surveil? The answer to that question tells you everything. The Dark Empath is the predator type no one warned you about. Because they don't look dangerous. They look like the person who finally understands you. And that's exactly what makes them lethal. If this changed how you see emotional manipulation, leave a comment. Have you encountered a Dark Empath? What were the warning signs you missed at first? And if you want more content on dark psychology and protecting yourself from manipulation, you know what to do. Thanks for watching. Remember, empathy without ethics is just another word for exploitation. Don't confuse understanding with caring. They're not the same thing. Because everything I just told you about spotting manipulators, they already know it. They've read the same books, watched the same videos, and they're 3 steps ahead. Stay with me, because what you're about to learn might save your life.